The Chicago Bears fans enter the 2025 offseason thinking about what could have been in Caleb Williams' rookie year. But I'm here to say it's not the worst thing in the world, as you guys will be looking for a new head coach, potentially find one within the division. And then also with a lot of cap space, I think 2025 could be a good season for you all. My name's Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and we're going to break down what to expect in the 2025 offseason. But before we get into that, if you want to help the Tracy Tate channel grow and you like the content that we put out, the easiest way is hitting that subscribe button, tackling that bell to get notified when new videos come out, and leave a like and a comment. Let us know who you would like to see the Bears bring in as the new head coach for Chicago. And Ryan, as I said, it's very rare in sports, especially in a season. I would say in a game you can maybe pick kind of things, but in a season, can you pick a moment where like that was a turning point for the team? And the Tyreek Stevenson dancing in the end zone on
Yeah.
the Washington Commanders Hail Mary play, it was just so like meme iconic. That's really what it is. But it is kind of amazing just the collapse that the team has had since then.
Yeah.
But also, to be fair though, to that point though, as it's fun to there are games that they shouldn't have won really early on, so to say, like the Tennessee game, the first
That was the first
their week
one.
one. And so they played a very weak Rams team that didn't have, I think, Puka Nacua or Cooper Cup as well. Carolina and Jacksonville were not playing nearly at all at full strength before their bye. But that being said, though, too, there was pretty consistent offensive struggles and defensive struggles really started to come into play. And horrible also just coaching decisions as well. Matt
Yeah.
Eberflus got fired after Thanksgiving game, rightfully so. But in general, though, like it's weird looking back at the Chicago season, like because there are some good things you can take from it. Like at least Caleb Williams got a first season overall,
Yeah.
under the books. You have a lot of cap space going on, and I think you go look at what this offense could be if you can fix the offensive line issues, get a better defensive coach in there. This team could be very competitive. I think in 2025.
Yeah, I think it could be. There are some things you have to fix. This defense drastically underperformed. This offensive line, like you said, and then everyone is talking about a lot of the other issues on this team, and I feel like I've been fairly consistent in saying you need to fix some of Caleb Williams' major issues because these are some of the issues that people pointed to coming out of college of him holding onto the ball too long. He's constantly hunting for the big play. Uh, he's scrambling to extend plays, not necessarily run. But then on the flip side of that, he's doing that and then chucking the ball up into double, triple coverage. And it's like he's started to figure some of these things out. But I do think like the players on this team, specifically Caleb Williams, have some need to take some of the blame for this team drastically underperforming because this time last year we were talking about how the Bears and Caleb Williams, this is one of the best rookie landing spots for a team
Oh
or
yeah,
for sorry, one of the best landing spots for a rookie quarterback that we might have ever seen just because of the fact that this wasn't initially their first overall pick. It was Carolina's. They got that in that DJ Moore trade. So all in all, like this team has a lot of talent and just drastically underperformed. And some of that is coaching. Some of that is I think the players didn't live up to their contracts or their draft status. And so there's a lot of things. So I think you need a guy that's going to come in, be a little bit of a hard ass, be a little bit of a jerk and run his system and not let guys come in here and just kind of do whatever they want to do. Because at a certain point, it felt a little bit like the Jets, where like the inmates were running the asylum with the Chicago Bears. And like you said, that Tyreek Stevenson Hail Mary debacle, whatever that was, it was kind of the beginning of the end for the
well,
Chicago Bears season.
if you're being honest, that what's funny about it is that it had nothing to do on the play because that play was so drawn out and so long. Like
Yeah,
that was like 15 or 20 seconds before, like it was as
the
the ball
ball
was
was thrown. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so like there was plenty of time, but it was just so meme worthy. And
Oh yeah.
but I can see that too. To be fair to Caleb Williams, I do feel like this offensive line didn't really play super well. I did feel like at times
No.
like he had no time at all to go through his reads.
Yeah.
Uh, um, a lot of his numbers and their success was in the fourth quarter. I do think their offensive, like the offensive scheming, could have been a lot better. You maybe also go and try and play to his strengths because, to be honest, like you go and look at these like his top four pass catchers. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet. It's how is that not a 4,000, 4,200 plus yard passing
Yeah,
season with all those guys there? So I also think too there's some offensive scheming issues that went into that, and this is what would be interesting if you had a Ben Johnson come in from Detroit and you had him within this offense. Now Keenan Allen is going to be free agent, but I think maybe he would come back. They have the cap space.
potentially.
He had a good year, 70 catches. Well, okay. It's funny. I just went all three levels. He probably had a subpar year for Keenan Allen standards. 70
Yeah,
catches, 744 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He led the team in receiving touchdowns. But you go and look at those offensive skill position players, and now I think they can maybe improve in the running back room. DeAndre Swift didn't break 1,000 yards this season. Also, not entirely his fault. I think with the
yeah,
offensive line play, but I I I think this offense could absolutely take off next
yeah,
year under the right leadership and under the right offensive coach. Whether it be offensive coordinator, like get a defensive coach to come in, and then you bring in, I don't know, some other good offensive coordinator, and go from there.
Joe Brady, Liam Cohn. There's a few guys that I think would be really interesting. The only two that I
I
would
don't think with those two names, I don't think they would leave their position unless it's for a head coaching job. Like Liam Cohn would probably
yeah,
stay in
yeah.
Tampa
Sorry,
Bay.
no. That's what
Uh,
I meant. Like for a head coach.
I see what you're talking about now. Yes,
I
yes.
I see. I think if they're going to go with like a defensive minded head coach, it's going to be Brian Flores or Aaron Glenn. Those are the only
Mhm.
two guys that I think have a ceiling that Bears fans would like. I think other than that, you're almost with how this team is set up. You're almost going, I think, strictly for an offensive minded head coach, and then going and getting a Robert Saleh to be your defensive coordinator.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Now that would be interesting, or
yeah,
maybe even Robert Saleh just as the head coach. But I guess
potentially,
we'd have to kind of wait and see. So that I think is going to be as we kind of move on to the free agency here and kind of what some of the team needs are. Is like head coach is going to be the biggest thing first. Second thing after that though is when you get the new head coach. Honestly, something similar with Jacksonville, I would say. Like with new head coach searching down there, you have your franchise quarterback. We got to protect the guy, and so it's going to be how are they going to address the offensive line? And even as right now, Coleman Shelton free agent, Tevin Jenkins free agent, Matt Pryor free agent. Any other Larry Borum played minimal amount of time, but still just another offensive lineman.
yeah,
So how can we get better on the trenches on the offensive side of the ball? And on the flip side, then too, how can we get better on in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball as well? So I know Chicago was 16th in sacks; they had 40 sacks on the season, but pretty close to last in rushing yards allowed. Not super great in passing yards allowed. Well, it's slightly below average in passing yards allowed. And that's just what's just kind of weird. I feel like about this team is I feel like there's some decent talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think once again too, I think it's just scheming things.
yeah,
The team started off hot when it came to their defense, but I think they could do a little bit better overall just when it comes to scheming and playing like to their strengths and then game planning against some of their weaknesses. I think that's something that Salah would bring. Just if we're throwing out names,
yeah,
would bring a lot. Brian Flores, I love Brian Flores' aggressiveness, especially too if you look at that division as well. Like be very aggressive on the blitzes that you send
yeah.
and put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I think that would be very interesting. So, but another thing too, we talked about skill position players. I feel a running back would also be pretty crucial as well for this team. And if you're going to get a running back, this is going to be the class to do it.
Oh yeah. Well, especially since you don't have to draft one high, you have Ashton Genty, Amari and Hampton kind of at the top of this class. But then you have guys like Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, like it's so many guys. Devin Neal on day 3, like Kyle Monangai. Like this list really goes on and on with draftable running backs in this draft class. And like these aren't just guys that'll come in and be like, this guy has like a ceiling of being a third down rotational back. It's like these are guys that could be bell cow backs for multiple years in the NFL. And so I'm really excited for this running back class and just kind of seeing what they can do going forward. So let's move on now kind of to some of the free agent targets and some of the draft targets. Starting here with some of the free agent targets, Cam Robinson, definitely want to get that left tackle position solidified. Chase Young, add another edge rusher across from Montez Sweat. Charles Omenihu, another edge rusher. BJ Hill, help fill that interior. And then Aaron Jones will be a free agent. That could be an interesting free agent running back option there as well. So this is an okay free agency class. Not going to be like a ton of big names moving places, but all in all, I think you could definitely add to your roster here. But where you're really going to make your money is going to be in this draft. So at the top, you have Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, and then Tyler Booker. If you want to go like with a pure interior offensive lineman, that might be on like day 2 if they want to do that. But Tyleik Williams, Kenneth Grant get some meat in the middle there. They do kind of run that smaller outside linebacker set. And speaking of outside linebackers, Mike Green and Donovan Ezaraku are really good day 2 options, I think, for edge rushers. Like running backs, this edge rusher class has a lot of different shapes and sizes and guys that are going to be NFL contributors right away.
Well, and that's what's going to be really interesting, I think, for the Bears as well. It's like they have 4 picks in the top 72. So if they're really aggressive from free agency and there's a lineman that they really like, let's say they fall in love with Will Campbell, they have some of the draft capital to trade up to maybe go in if they feel like he's going to get taken at 8th, so to say. They have the
Yeah.
draft capital to trade up, I would say, and then or if there's guys that they don't like, they can maybe trade back in the with their 10th pick, or maybe even trade back with one of their second round picks, just get more draft capital as well, try and bring in as much young talent as possible. That's where kind of whatever head coaching route that they end up going here and what the front office wants to do. That's what's going to be very fascinating to watch. And we'll start to see that uh, kind of take form come end of January, mid-February after the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. Because the Senior Bowl to me, I feel there's going to be a lot of guys watching the Senior Bowl as well. I think I saw something of like Mel Kiper's top 150, 78 guys on
Yeah.
there.
The
Will be
Senior Bowl
it's
is
going to be wild.
stacked. Yeah,
It's going to be
it's
more
stacked.
entertaining than the entirety of the XFL. I'll say that. It's like there's going to be much more to watch there, and I think, and that's what I think for the Bears too. If you go look at the weaknesses for this team, there's not like a stud offensive tackle, but there's a lot of good offensive linemen just overall that can maybe kick in the
Yeah.
guard. Something similar to, I think, even like Tevin Jenkins did as well coming out of Oklahoma State. I'd have to go back and double check. Let me know in the comments. But then at the same time, the two defensively, though, if you're trying to improve this defense or just get better players as well, to the defense, as I said, I already think there's decent talent on this side of the ball. I think it's more of a scheming thing that they were just not able to really do that well in the second half of the season after their bye. So Bears, I will say, very tough division, but I do think though it's going to be the NFC North is going to hit a very interesting time here in a second because uh, Aaron Glenn's the DC for the Lions, correct? That's
Yeah.
his. Okay, yeah. So Aaron Glenn could potentially be a head coach. Ben Johnson could potentially be a head coach. For being honest, that's they're the main. Like I love Dan Campbell's leadership, but I'm curious overall. I feel like the play calling comes from both of those guys as well. The
Yeah.
leadership and the head coach obviously come from Dan Campbell. You take those guys away, what are the lines really going to be? You take Brian Flores away from Minnesota, and then Sam Darnold moves on from Minnesota. You have JJ McCarthy in there. I really trust Kevin O'Connell is going to develop JJ McCarthy well, but still, what is Minnesota going to be like? And then Green Bay regressed a little bit. They had some injuries, but there's opportunities for Chicago here, I think, to
Yeah.
be more aggressive and more effective. Maybe we could see the first division have all 4 teams make the playoffs ever, actually, in NFL history next year. If the Bears can get the right guy in there and this
Yeah.
team and this offense and defense can like take the appropriate steps forward.
Yeah, and that is like all in all, this is an attractive destination for a head coach. I would
Mhm.
love to see a Ben Johnson come here, one for the storyline, moving teams in the division, but also get an offensive mind like that in a room with Caleb Williams. He could coach up this offensive line, especially if you bring in a Will Campbell that has that leadership abilities there. So, like, these receiver weapons are fantastic. They vastly underperformed this season, and some of
Oh
that is the
yeah,
division, some of that is just they didn't play up to snuff. So
yeah.
let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you want to see the Chicago Bears do this offseason. Do you want them to bring in Ben Johnson? Do you want them to bring in a Liam Cohn, a Joe Brady? What offensive lineman do you want them to draft in the first round, or do you want them to go after somebody else? Let us know down below. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.